This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
For TGI Sports Talks weekly vlog right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. Sorry about that. I got a little technical difficulties with my camera lately. Welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about the Mets and the Buck effect. And at the end of this, watch the commercial real quick that I'll play for the Dream Ride. It's something that Northeast Streaming Sports will be heavily involved with, sponsoring this event. In Farmington, Connecticut. I think it's Farmington, Connecticut, August 26th through the 28th. It's a great, it's a great cause. They raise money for the Hometown Foundation, I should say. And they raised $3 million last year, and I think $18 million overall. So watch the commercial at the end of this and certainly support them. And we'll be talking about it on all our shows going forward. Listen, talking about the Mets and Buck, listen, I'm doing this on Friday, whatever the date is, the 6th of May. The Mets have just come back with a huge come-from-behind victory against the Phillies last night. For their biggest ninth inning comeback in 25 years, down 7-1 in the ninth inning. But it's not just this. This is the type of win and again, they've had a couple of these ninth inning victories now, coming from well behind to win games. And these are the type of things that build momentum and teams carry with them throughout the season, because it gives you a level of confidence that you're never out of a game. And I think it's very important to realize that Buck Showalter has had a huge effect on this Met team overall already. They're not necessarily hitting the ball terribly well. I mean, Lindor, who's had his moments this year, is still only hitting about 240. Some other guys are struggling with the bat. Pete Alonso hasn't really caught fire yet. And I will tell you, but though they're hitting with 2 strikes, they're hitting with 2 outs, they're hitting with men in scoring position. Situational baseball has changed 100%. I said in several vlogs and on a lot of my shows leading up to this that Buck Showalter's influence in changing the culture with the Mets would be huge. He's done a great job of juggling the lineup and keeping guys fresh. He's done a great job of holding guys accountable without really calling them out necessarily in the press. He's done a great job of juggling a pitching staff that, is missing one of its aces. Max Scherzer's pitching, pretty well, as we would expect Max Scherzer to do, but nothing out of Jacob deGrom now or probably before Memorial Day. But he's coaxed great performances out of McGill and Peterson, who's just come back from the minors and got caught up in a numbers game. And you watch him just kind of schooling players on different situations. And I've read a lot of articles where guys like Alonso and Lindor, and I've seen some of this where you see him talking to guys in the dugouts, and I've mentioned it before. But apparently, even during batting practice and at different points in the game, guys are coming up and asking Buck questions about the situation and why they did things the way that they did them. Not because they're questioning what he did, but because they want to know what to do. And they're learning on the job what to do in certain game situations. So they're thinking about what to do. Think about the contrast between, and again, the Yankees have been doing very well, right? They just come off an 11-game winning streak. They did lose to the Blue Jays on Wednesday night. But in that ninth inning, Joey Gallo's up with 2 men on and 2 outs. And all he needs is a base hit to tie the game. And he did walk, to his credit. But his approach to that at bat was just not very good. He's still trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And you watch the Mets look to put the ball in play with 2 strikes, and that's the Buck effect. Throwing to the right base, better base running, better all around. Well, I just said defensive play with throwing to right base and whatnot. Timely hitting, guys moving, guys up and sacrificing themselves. Little things that add up to making talented teams winning teams. Buck does this. I know Buck hasn't won a World Series. I get it. But look at the teams Buck took over. Buck took over the Yankees when the Yankees were horrendous. And George Steinbrenner got suspended, and Buck and Gene Michael built that team to where if the 95 strike or 94 strike doesn't happen, they're possibly in the World Series that year. They got the best record in baseball. Them and the Expos have the best records in baseball. But there's a strike and there is no World Series. They come back the next year and they lose in the playoffs, a great series to the Mariners, and they fire Buck. Well, the team that he and Gene Michael put together ended up becoming a dynasty. No disrespect to Joe Torre, but Buck didn't win a world championship there due to circumstances in my mind. He goes to Arizona and starts this team from scratch. And he wins 100 games and gets into the playoffs in his second year there. Overstays his welcome. Now, Buck's biggest problem has been, overstepping his control boundaries. He goes to Texas and they do win. Look at they won more games than they lost, but the management there to just put together a horrendous team for him. Signing A-Rod to a crazy contract, gets fired there and moves on to Baltimore, who was atrocious when they got him. They may have lost 110 plus games a year before he got there, and they were playing horrendous when he got in the job in midseason. And he led them to, I think, a 500 record or close to it the rest of that season, and then had them in the playoffs multiple years in Baltimore with not a very good team, by the way. You can't get on Buck for not making the World Series with Baltimore and with Texas and even with Arizona. But he turned each one of those teams around, and he turned the Yankees around. And he did make a World Series due to some bad luck. The players' strike, the Mariners having a tremendous 10th inning against Jack McDowell in 95 and knocking the Yankees out of the playoffs. And what was a very exciting series, and Buck losing his job because of it. And George Steinbrenner, by the way, after he hired Joe Torre, was trying to get Buck back. Now, Buck is doing the same thing in New York with the Mets. Wish he was in the Yankee dugout, but he's doing the same thing with the Mets. They're doing little things that help them win games. Now, I read articles that, if the Mets keep hitting the way they're hitting, they'll never be able to sustain this success that they had. And they got a 5.5 game lead over the Phillies as we speak here on May 6th. That's a pretty big lead in the 1st of May. And they're winning games. The fact that they're winning games before they start hitting, I'm confident Lindor is going to hit more than 240. And I'm confident that Alonso will start putting the ball out of the ballpark at a more consistent rate. But Jeff McNeil's playing better under Buck. Conha's been a great pickup, and he's the kind of player Buck loves. The outfield defense has been so much better, and he's used Starling Marte perfectly, and he's giving him a break here and there because he needed to keep him healthy. That outfield defense is faster, and it's better defensively than it's been in a couple of years for the Mets. The infield defense is certainly tighter than it was previously. Letting Robbie Cano go was a tough blow. For the players, they loved Robbie, but Robbie had no place to play on this team. Now, Mets, and it shows you what the Mets are willing to do when they eat $40 million by just cutting Robbie Cano. They DFA'd him, designated him for assignment, but then I think a day or two later, they just outright released him. And now they owe him $40 million, I believe, $37 million, whatever it might be. But Buck has done this shorthanded too. The pitching staff is not what we expected it to be without DeGrom. They've had injuries to Walker. Carrasco's pitched well. McGill's pitched well. Peterson's pitched well. Scherzer's been what we expected him to be. And I think the Mets are positioned to really, really make a run at what might be a weaker Eastern Division than we thought. The Phillies are just terrible defensively. Joe Girardi's probably going to lose his job here before Memorial Day if things don't change. And the buck effect in New York is already paying great dividends. You see guys much more into games, and then winning, helps guys build a better camaraderie they have than when they're losing. But also their manager holding them accountable, knowing what their job is important as well, and being held accountable to do the little things that help win baseball games, like throwing to the right base, taking the extra base. Better base running in general, timely hitting, 2-strike hits, 2-out runs, scoring base hits. These are the type of things that winning teams do. And the Mets, by all accounts, and I understand it's May 6th and we can't, say anything. I know a lot of fans are looking at a Subway Series right now. I'm not getting too far ahead of myself. All I'm telling you is the Mets have made a great decision, and it's been the evidence is in my account that, at least in my eyes, that the Mets have made a perfect play in getting Buck Showalter into New York. And that's all I got to say right now. This is Keith Engel from TGI Sports Talk. I'm going to end with the commercial that I promised for the Dream Ride, and we'll catch you on our Sunday stream of consciousness. Keith Engel from TGI Sports Talk right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Have a great day.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more.